While the Russian government has managed to make a $117 million interest payment, it is not clear how the government will make the larger payment of $2.2 billion on April 4. While Russia is still able to make smaller installment payments in rubles, it is unlikely that it will have the money on hand to meet its April 4 debt payment. This is despite the fact that the country is due more than $4.8 billion in debt this year. As of March 4, Russia has frozen the funds required to pay off its debt. It can only make these payments until May 25, but the country may have to borrow money or sell oil to countries like China and India to cover the payment. If this doesn't work, the US's harsh sanctions could backfire by removing its access to markets and reducing its motivation to pay off its debt. The government of Russia paid $117 million in interest last week. But creditors are less optimistic that Russia will make the $2.2 billion payment on time. The country has a total debt of $54 billion, and the $2.2 billion payment is the largest. Therefore, creditor sentiments have been lowered. The $117 million payment was a small investment in credibility. However, the larger payment is the biggest risk to creditors. The Russian government made a $117 million interest payment to foreign investors last week. But the $2.2 billion payment due on April 4 has creditors less optimistic. The post by Jay Newman, a former portfolio manager at Elliott Management, argues that this will only serve to sabotage the government's chances of paying off its debt. It has been a good investment for many years. The Russian government made a $117 million interest payment last week, but it still has a $2.2 billion payment due on April 4 that is due on the same day. While the $117 million payment was a small investment in credibility, the larger payment is a huge risk for creditors. But there is no need to panic. As the US is concerned about the Russian government's credibility, the market will most likely impose tougher sanctions against the country. Despite the huge amount of debt that Russia owes to foreigners, the country is unlikely to default on its debt. The Russian central bank has frozen its hard currency reserves in the US, while it is prohibited from doing business with some Russian banks. Moreover, the Russian finance minister has stated that the country would continue to pay its interest payments in rubles if the sanctions prevent them from making dollar payments. However, according to the US Treasury website, it is permitted to make payments on Russian bonds until May 25. The remaining bondholders have 30 days to repay. Investors were frightened by the news that Russia might default on its April 4 payment of $2.2 billion. The International Monetary Fund said the country has been systematically irrelevant since the Ukraine conflict broke out, and its fallout is already hitting the global economy. Although the country has a large foreign debt, the upcoming payment is mandated to be made in dollars. As a result, the Russian currency will likely not be able to be remitted by US banks. While there are many reasons why a Russian government might default, the most important issue is the amount of foreign debt that the country has. The government owes more than $40 billion in foreign currency. About half of this debt is owed to foreigners. The current situation in the country is so dire that it is unlikely that it will ever catch up with its obligations. This is a major problem, as it has crippled its economy. While it is unclear whether the Russian government will be able to make the payment in dollars, some economists believe that the country will not default on its $2.2 billion payment until the end of the month. The fallout from the conflict has already hit the global economy. Although the United States will be able to pay the rest of its debt, Russia will most likely default on its payments of US dollar bonds through at least May 25.